Maybe they've gotten caught cheating. Maybe they've been suspended or dismissed even for a while from school. And they're asking me, am I done? Is my life over? And this is a very serious question, something that merits some time and attention. Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. My name is Thomas Caleel. I'm the former director of MBA admissions and financial aid for my alma mater, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. In this podcast, I don't promise easy answers or quick fixes, but I will use my decades of experience to help you achieve your education goals. Now let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Caleel. We're in season 4, and today's going to be a little bit more of a serious topic. I'm seeing a lot of DMs and messages from students who have made a serious mistake. Maybe they've gotten caught cheating. Maybe they've been suspended or dismissed even for a while from school. It could be a variety of things. It could be academic. It could be behavioral. And they're asking me, am I done? Is my life over? And this is a very serious question, something that merits some time and attention. So I'm going to give you some examples, some things that I've worked through with different students and ways that you can address this. What I would say is that by and large, obviously there are some lines we don't want to cross, but by and large, mistakes happen. Admissions officers understand that you're young adults, you're trying things, you're making mistakes. And what is less important than making mistakes is how you address that. How do you deal with that? So let's talk first about academic issues. Maybe you were caught cheating on a test or an exam or on a paper. This is very serious because colleges and universities take academic dishonesty very, very seriously. And something I really want to caveat here is AI. I am seeing a lot of students right now getting in trouble for using AI when policies specifically tell you not to. I don't want to get into a debate of whether AI is a future, whether AI is something that you need to do, should use, shouldn't use if the schools are out of step. That's a debate for a very different time and a very different place. The fact is, if the syllabus says, if the teacher says you may not use AI in this capacity and you use AI, that is going to get you into very serious trouble. And if you attend, for example, a school with an honor code, a lot of the boarding schools have honor codes, that is one of the most serious infractions that you can make. And sometimes that's a zero tolerance policy. You violate the honor code, you're out. Now, sometimes the schools will give you a second chance. I recently had a freshman who violated the AI policy at a boarding school, and they were somewhat forgiving, put her on probation, said, listen, don't do this again. You knew it was wrong, but we'll give you a little bit of leeway because you're a first-year student. Maybe you were still adjusting. But the fact remains that if you are given guidelines, you have to abide by them. But what happens if you're caught cheating on an exam or plagiarizing a paper, for example? Recently had a student reach out to me and said that their transcript indicated this. And a lot of times what will happen is you will get an F or a C or a D in the class, and there may or may not be a mark even put on your file. This is extremely serious. And here's what I recommend. I actually had a student a few years ago who was first year in college, and he made a really bad mistake. He cheated on a test. He didn't need to. He was smart. He was doing well in the class. But through a series of unfortunate events, he was caught by the proctors sharing his answers with another student. It was a friend of his. They hadn't really studied. And we get it. We feel that I want to help my friend out. I don't think I'm going to get caught. It's all good. I have a sense of immortality. I'm 18. And unfortunately, they were caught. And what I'm going to tell you is if you are caught, you have to get in front of this immediately. Now, I talked to this talked to this young man in about 10, 15 minutes of concentrated questioning. I walked away and said, listen, I don't know what happened, but I know he's not telling the truth. It was very evident to me with experience. And so what the professor did, in fairness, the professor said to him, hey, listen, to him and the other student, hey, listen, come in, tell me what happened. And instead of talking to me first, they both went in and denied everything individually. And so the professor said, well, you know what? I gave you a chance and you blew it. I gave you a chance to own this and get in front of it. And now I'm going to turn you over to the disciplinary process. And it was very messy for these two students. They received a 0 on the exam, which meant that they ended up with a D in the course, crippling on a transcript. And so what I advised the student to do was to basically beg forgiveness and throw himself on the mercy of the teacher. There was an opportunity for a hearing, and there's a lot of talk back and forth. Do we fight this? Do we lawyer up? And at the end of the day, I said, listen, you can fight it. You can lawyer up. You can get something kind of changed on a technicality, but it's not going to change the grade. And when it comes later to applying for grad school or trying to transfer or anything else, if you're trying to apply to a job that requires a transcript, you're going to have this bad grade there and you're going to have to explain it. Now, how are you going to explain it in a way that makes sense? And so what the student did was they approached the professor and they said, listen, I made a series of very, very bad mistakes. I regret it. I'm deeply sorry. I have no excuse for my behavior, but I would like to redeem myself. And the professor said, and a lot of teachers will say this as well, okay, you need to accept the punishment because I can't just let you get away with this just because you're sorry. You had your chance earlier and you blew it. But what we can do now is work together on a path towards redemption. And so the student was able, over the course of the rest of the year, to prove themselves, go to office hours, work hard, not kissing up, not, being disingenuous, but really working and showing the professor, listen, I learned my lesson, head down, working hard, helping tutor other students in the class. And when that student eventually actually applied for a transfer, this professor wrote a very meaningful letter and said, hey, listen, I get it. Right? Young people make mistakes. This person made a mistake, but I'd like you to look past that and understand that the content of his character is more than just a bad decision in a final exam. And that transfer was ultimately very successful for this young man. And he's recruiting now at the college he transferred to and just secured his dream job. So there is a process here. But if you violate an academic policy, own up to it, right? Talk to your teachers, explain the circumstances, even if it was just a moment of, I'm going to use the term stupidity. You made a dumb decision and a dumb mistake. You need to own that because you can get redemption on that. Now, if there is a disciplinary problem, that's a little bit different. Certainly, I have in my time admitted students who committed misdemeanors, and a lot of times there are sections on the application saying, hey, do you want to disclose this? First of all, you have to disclose it, right? Because statement of application integrity, if you don't and somebody brings it to the school's attention, they can and absolutely will revoke your admission because you misrepresented yourself. And as long as it's not a violent crime, again, I would see misdemeanors, people playing pranks, like senior pranks that went wrong. Sometimes they would have been arrested for like driving under the influence, for example. Really stupid, really dangerous. And it had a profound impact on their life, impacted their school. It's a disciplinary record, but they got in front of it and they were able to write a very thoughtful essay. Sometimes it was in the personal statement where they integrated it into their life lesson because it impacted how they approach the world, how they approach their classes, how they approach their extracurricular activities. Other times it's in the additional information section. Remember, what the admissions officers are interested in here is what you learned, how you dealt with it. I had another student who was at a boarding school who was found in violation of substance abuse policy, and he was struggling with that and really knocked him sideways. But what he was able to do, thankfully, with some therapy and counseling and working with his parents and looking deep into himself, was to get past this sense of unfairness. Everybody else does it. Why am I being punished? And he was really able to set on a course of redemption and built a support group for young people away from home for the first time who are wrestling with peer pressure, who have maybe not the safest environment with which to share their concerns, their stresses, and really built this interesting club and support group. And so when they walked into their counselor at the beginning of this process, the counselor gave them really a list of tier 4 schools and said, listen, your academics suffered. You have this on your record. You're not going anywhere good. And we worked very hard with this student to structure a really deeply meaningful summer internship to really help them focus in their extracurricular activity, to really put emphasis on this club that they had created, and then build a story about that and really get out in front of it. The hook of the essay, went basically to, I almost destroyed my life my sophomore year. And what that did was it really set the frame for I own this mistake that I made. I'm taking responsibility for it. But more than that, more than just taking responsibility, I turned it into something more. I used it to help other students who were struggling, who I recognized were struggling. And so it's a much different arc. It's that redemption and self-awareness arc. You cannot just tell a story about how this was unfair, but I'm fine now. That isn't, you need to demonstrate and show. And more than that, you really need additional letters from the adults, the teachers, the counselors involved who can really attest to the fact that this is not performative, that you did do the work, that you have grown, that you have learned your lesson. Because none of us are perfect. And admissions officers do respect a story of damage and self-reflection, self-awareness, and growth. So I want you to lean into that. Now, if you, let's say it's second semester junior year, fall semester senior year, that's a lot trickier because you don't have time for that redemption. In that case, sometimes I do recommend taking a gap year, really working on yourself, really laying the foundation for you to come back and say, look, I intentionally stepped away. I intentionally hit pause because I knew that I wasn't ready to make this application and make this step. And these are very, very, very important things. Likewise, if you've been admitted to a school and something goes wrong, you cheat, you get in trouble, you need to disclose that immediately because the school will find out, because your school will have to update them. And if you wait for that to happen, now you're on the back foot, you're on the defensive, and the university is reaching out to you saying, hey, we're sending you to faculty review committee and you need to write a paragraph or two on what happened, but they're already in their mind, they're kind of moving down the path. If you get in front of it, if you can gather letters from the people involved saying, hey, this is what happened. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was just a bad judgment call, something like that. You write about it, you get in front of it, you suggest, what you talk about, what you're doing, the steps you're doing, the punishment that you're accepting, and how you're going to redeem yourself. You can get ahead of that. You can save that. So I really want to say to all of you out there, we are human. We make mistakes and it's okay. How you deal with that mistake is going to have a very critical impact on your success in the college process. So do not despair. Take a very deep breath, follow the steps that I laid out. If you've faced this yourself and have succeeded, please at Admittedly Co. on our socials, please tell me what happened. How did you overcome this? Share your story with others, because I find that reading stories from other people who have been in the same situation is very helpful to these students that are stressed out, thinking they've ruined their lives. If you are in the middle of something like this, reach out to me, DM me. I'm happy to help talk you through it. We're here for you. We don't want you to think that your life is ruined. We can get through this together. It's going to be a process. It's going to be painful. You're going to have to sit in that feeling for a while. I was actually just at a presentation at the Thatcher School, and they do a lot of experiential learning. And the dean of students was talking about, hey, listen, when these students make a mistake, we want them to sit in that feeling. We don't want to grind it in. We don't want to torment them, but we need them to sit in the feeling, because if we pass through that too quickly, the brain doesn't learn that it's made a mistake. The brain learns, hey, this is uncomfortable, but I can move through this. And so it creates even riskier behaviors in the future. So we want to sit there. We want to acknowledge, hey, I made this mistake, right? Even if you feel like it's not fair, even if you feel like everybody else is doing it, but you got caught. That's the way life is sometimes. So sit in that feeling, acknowledge it, accept it, ask for help. Nobody wants you to do this on your own. If we are the only people you can turn to for help, we're here. Email us, reach out to us on social media. We're happy to talk you through, happy to share experience, happy to help you navigate this really, really difficult time. And as I said before, I have taken students who have made mistakes, who have gotten in trouble for misdemeanors, who have violated academic integrity policies, who have violated the honor code, and helped them straighten out, fly right, get their feet back under them, do something meaningful with the time they have left, and get admittance to some of the best universities on the planet. That's not the end goal. The end goal here is to get you back on track and strong and where you want to be. Follow us on socials, Instagram, TikTok, @AdmittedlyCo. Stay tuned for more on this podcast. I really welcome your feedback. I'd love to hear from you. Parents, how are you navigating this? If your child has made a mistake, this is a very important, valuable dialogue. And for those of you who have been through it, sharing your experience is deeply meaningful to everybody else who might be going through it for the first time. Thank you for following. I look forward to continuing this conversation. Thank you for joining us today. Please take a moment to subscribe to the Admittedly podcast and download this episode. I welcome you to share your thoughts and questions with me. You can find us on social media @AdmittedlyPodcast. I look forward to continuing our journey together.